Okay, so yesterday we did an introduction to React, and we saw the importance of why learn React and when to learn React, and what React uses, or someone is on mute. Okay, so we learned about several concepts and the introduction to React and why was React made. We said it's a library that was made by Meta company to handle the issues of mutating DOM in the application. When the Facebook was growing big and bigger, it was very much slow when you're trying to rerun the whole page instead of a component that is having that change. Then after that, we said React is a library, so you can use it with other or integrate it with other tools very easily. After learning that, you need to learn about the React router, the state management, and the rest. Then we talked about on how you can spin up a React project using the Vite, which is npm create Vite. Then after that, we did some intro of how we do the templating using JSX. So you use the curly braces to write your JavaScript or HTML or to manipulate your DOM directly without using the create element and append child, which are the DOM function that JavaScript uses to add new elements in the DOM. And then lastly, we did cover something on props and how we pass props in a component. We say a component just a function, normal function, but it's now in React we call them components. And those components you pass properties, and they just called props. So those properties are now make that component being reusable with different properties. So you create that component once and you reuse it whenever you want that component. And we talked about how you can do that. So you pass a text or a property in a component, and then you call it or you return that property in that function. And we did say it that you can pass anything, either the text, the numbers, the Boolean, even the children or any other component like a child. And that is what I want to focus on how we can pass a component as a child. So a child as a property in a parent component. In short, or we are passing some component inside another component. So the parent component holds the entire page. Then we have some child components that you are passing as a prop in the component. Then after that, we will jump into another concept of which is very similar to what we did in JavaScript and TypeScript, which is handling event, which is the same as whatever we did there. So the events are like the mouse click, the mouse movement, and the keyboard event. So those events are the same way, but now we handle them differently. Instead of just having a callback function on the on click, we can pass a dynamic what? A value or a function in the JSX so that you can handle that on click and call a function. If you want to handle change, you pass a function using the JSX format. Example of that is like this. So you have a button which has on click. So on click, you're just calling handle click function, which is defined at the top or anywhere in your application. Then once you call that function, the function is just another function that is as this alert what message, which is alerting maybe someone clicked that button. So there are various events that you target or you handle when working with the React. And some of them is the clipboard event, which is on copy, on cut, on paste, things like the control C, control V, and control X. We have the composition event. We have the keyboard, which is key down, key up, key press, and enter, things like that. We have the pointer event, so which is the cursor, and the selection event, the focus, which is on focus, on blur. Then one of the most used event is the form event. We'll be working with the forms. Maybe you are registering, you are logging, you're adding a new item in the system. So you'll be interacting with a form. So you'll be having much on change function event that will be listening on an event, especially on inputs. Then on submit. So the on submit is when now you click the submit button on that what form. On valid, invalid. So you are checking some values on that what form. And on reset, so the reset is whatever you are typing on that form, you want to reset the values on that form. So you have some generate event and a mouse event, which is on click, on drag, on mouse out, and on mouse leave. Then UI event, things like scrolling. So if you are scrolling in a web, so that is also an event. Then we have the wheel event that is now on an external mouse that has a wheel. You can check something like the number data mode, the number delta X, the number, and the rest. So a basic example of a form that you can listen to those events. So we have a form which has these inputs. So this form has two or three labels, HTML elements. Such just a label to showcase its a name. Then on input, you have this text, and the name of that input is this name and ID. Then you have a button. So this button is of type submit. So when handling now event on the form, you will have the on submit event that we have talked about. So on this on submit event, you will be calling under submit function, this one. On that on submit function, so you are passing the event that is happening, which is that event. And that event, remember what we did on the DOM manipulation, the purpose of e.prevent defaults, you want to prevent the page reload when trying to submit a form, or you don't want to submit a form by default when you click the submit button. Then you can do other things now on capturing the event details, which is now this input. You can target it with the specific, the name or the ID. Then you do something with that. And if you have a button, same case, a button as an on click event. So the on click event, we pass the JSX. So the JSX, we pass that under click, which is now this function. And that function is just console logging that message. The button was what? Clicked. So that is it. And let's focus on first of all passing children or other component as a prop in React. So back on our folder, which is our first this week 7 folder, I want to create a new folder for maybe my second project. So on this second project, I wanted to open with the terminal and initialize a React template there. So pnpm create void. So the name of my project, I want to be on the current folder I am, which is my second project. Then the name of my package name, I want to be the same as that of that folder name. and it's a React template, then with TypeScript. I don't want the roll down, but I want also to install the dependencies and start the server. So that is done. Let me just stop the server from running, but also open the project with the VS Code. So once that is opened with the VS Code, this is our initial React project. And then I want to run it with to run that project. Let me just turn off this. So running this, we use the band npm run dev. Then on the port 5173, that is where our project is running from, this one. So I want to put it side by side to see what we are working on. So let me put it there and also my project on this side. So the thing I want us to focus is how we can pass a component as a prop in another component. So how do we do that? So very quickly in our source folder, I want to create the component folder. So the component. Once I create that, I want to create, I want to be using the joke. I want to be creating a joke application. So React joke app. So in the components, I want to have two files, which is a canned component .tsx and a joke component. So joke.tsx. So on this, the first canned, this one, I said you can use the extension I used, which is ES7 for auto completing. So if I type RAFCE, React arrow function with export and tab, it should autocomplete my component there with this now way of defining that canned. So in that canned, we want to do something and we want to pass some parameters or the properties here. So these properties, the first property I want to pass is now a children. So children is anything you can pass on this component. So we call it a children. Then maybe we want to pass a title and a background. So I want to pass a background color. So this background or these properties, I want to type it with the prop interface. So just in the top, I want to create an interface called canned props. And if you are keen enough, you may have realized most of the interfaces we use Pascal naming convention. But if you are having some variables, we are using what? The camel keys. So that is the key difference you should be noting there. So the interface, they always take the Pascal naming convention, and the variable names, they use the camel keys naming convention. So on the return, I want to return a div here. And this div, I want to return an h2. So this h2 is just maybe the title of that cant I want to return. So I want to use the JSX, then return this title. So that is the title I want to return there. Then the other thing after returning that, then below here, I want now to return the children. So the children is just now anything that I will be passing on this card. That is what we are having here. So on the interface, on how we type this children variable, so the children, and these children, how do we type it? So we just call the React, then we call the React node as a what? Our type for these children. So we call the React dot React what? Node. So the React node, they are just represent all of things React can do what? So which where the React element only represent what? The JSX. So the React node represent everything that can be done what? So everything include now any component you can pass as a prop in this what? Card. Then the title, what's wrong with this title? So we need to type it here. So the title is of type string. And then the background. So the background color of also a string, but I want to make it optional. So I want to make it optional and also initialize it with initial value. If we do not pass that background color, we'll use the default value we have here. So the default value I want to use is this color, which is close to cream, that one. Then maybe we can have some styling on this div. So we call the style keyword, then we pass another curly braces we can pass. So on the div, I want to use this background. If we do not pass any background on this interface or this component, we want to use this background color, that one. So background color, then we want to maybe have a border of 2 pixels and border radius of 10 pixels, padding of 20 pixels, and margin of 15 pixels, top and bottom, 0 pixels, left and right. We remember this from our CSS classes. So we have our component there. So the next thing is now to render that component in our app.tsx. So I'll just remove whatever we have here. Remove everything, then we remain with just the boilerplate of this function, whatever you are returning here. So in this app now, we want to do something. We want to render that card. This card we are having here. So how do we do that? So we can have maybe a div. So this div has a style like styles. So the style I want to add is just some padding and max width. So padding of 20 pixels. Then we have a max width of 800 pixels. And then maybe the last thing is margin. So margin of 0, top and bottom, and auto, left and right. So on this div now, I want to have some, maybe an HTML H1 or H2 tag. And I want to have maybe a message like we are learning on how to pass what? A property, a prop, a component as a prop, and also we want to render something, which is now our joke application that we'll be building later. So we have that now in our application. And below here, I want now to call the canned component, or to render the canned components. How do we call? So we call that canned by just calling the name of that card, which is this, and you are importing it from the components. Then we need to cross or to close that card. But that card, of course, you see, it's already taking the background color that you are passing on this. So we are not passing in the background color. So it is using this default color that we have where in this component. So we can pass other things now in this card. So the card expects the children and the what? The title. So I can decide not to pass the children, but just pass what? The title. So the title can be something like what are we learning now? So the title may be what we learning. So something like that. Then the background can remain that for the text. We need to fix the color of that text. And maybe by doing what? On the card. So the color of this title we can have that style there. Then we pass the color of that text to be something close to dark so that we can differentiate the background and the text. Yeah, so we have now that a good message there. So on the app, you are passing that, then we can pass a background in that card again, and you just twist it a little bit. So with that, we have the what? That background. So then this card, because it has some children, we do not now cross with this or crossing symbols. So what we do, we call it as a normal HTML tag by doing that. With that now, this card, we can be able to pass what? Something in this what? In this card inside, because whatever, if you over to this, the JSX element has no corresponding what? Closing tag. So this should be not on the, that should be at the first here. So with that now, our card expects somewhat the children, the title, and the what? The background. We have already passed the title and we have already passed what? The background. Whatever is remaining is what? The children. And the children says is anything that a React can render. So inside our card, we can pass now any other element or any other HTML element or any other component we have now. So I can just pass an ordered list and automatically when I add that element, the error goes away because you have now passing a children, which is now this element, which an HTML or React can render. So on this HTML unordered list, I want just to display whatever I want to learn today. So let me just have that code there, which is now this whatever we are running here. So then some style just to give it a color. So whatever we'll be running now, so it will be this array.map. So to turn array into a component, then the key, whatever we did yesterday to keep React track, help React keep track of our list items. Then we want to pass that data in each component. Then whatever you have done now, it's passing an element or passing a component inside the what? So we are, for this case, we have just passed HTML elements as our children in this component. So we can do it again with now another component, which is this joke component. So let's first of all implement our joke component. So React arrow function with component export, that one. So then on this component, I want to return a div. So I want to return a div. So this div is of having this style. Let me just have those styles as quick as possible. So this div, I want it to be having these styles. So to have a border radius, padding, margin, and what? Yeah, and padding. So they should be styles. So inside now this div, I want also to have maybe the joke ID. So I want to have a card that has a joke ID. So I want to have another div. So this joke or div we have here, I want to also have it some styling. We want to have those styling on this, the next div we are having here. So let's cross this. So this div, we want just to display something. So on this div, we want to display the joke ID. In our component or the source folder, I want to have another folder for data. So in this data, I want to have some joke data in JSON format. So I create a new file. I can call it a joke data.json. I want to have some JSON data there. So I want to copy some jokes I have from somewhere. They are very comic jokes, and we should be able to see them while we render them in our application. So in our joke component, we want now to render. So if we check this joke, it has an ID, the joke, and the what? The rating. So this div, I want to render the ID of that joke here. So I want to maybe have text like that, then hashtag. So this hashtag should be the one I want to render a dynamic value using what? The JSX templating. So whatever I want to render here is the ID of this what? Joke. So as we remember, we must pass that as a prop in our component. So open this component. Then the first thing I want to pass is maybe the three values we have in this joke. So I want to be passing ID. I want to be passing what? The joke itself and what? The rating. So with that now, remember we need to type this. So at the top, we need an interface. So this interface of joke props can be like that. So the joke prop has a rating, or we can start with an ID of number. And then we have the joke itself, which is a string. Then we have what? The rating, which is also a number. So whatever I want to pass here or to call to say that ID. So if I will be displaying this joke, I want to pass the ID of that and show the ID of that joke. So that is this property I'm passing here, and that is the ID I should pass there. Remember to type our props with the interface. So joke props that way. So the next thing now, after this div, I want to have a p tag. So this p tag is where now I want my joke to be rendered. So I must use now the JSX syntax, then render what? That joke there, which is coming from our property for the prop we are passing in this. I want to have it with quotation mark that way. So the joke will be rendered here, this one, with the quotation mark, which we are adding them here. I want to give it some styling, like the fonts size, the line height, and the rest. So this p tag, I want it to have those styling. Then the next thing after the p tag, I want to render now the rating. Remember, we have three properties. We have already read that the ID of that joke. We have already read that what? The joke, and the remaining thing is what? The rating. So just below here, I want to have a div. So this div, I want to render a span. So this span, I want to render a JSX now, syntax, or a JSX value there. Then even after rendering that, after that, I want to have another span just below there to do something different. So which is now I want to be rendering this rating. So here I want to render the rating of that joke. Also, I want to have that text, then the JSX syntax. Then after I pass the joke or the rating, which is this one, that is what I want to pass here as our value. So once I pass that, that is the rating of that what? And maybe my rating is out of 10. So I can pass now this out of 10. So it will be 9 out of 10, 4 out of 10, 8 out of 10. That is what I want. But here, I want to do something. I want to have an helper function that I can call and filter or maybe format our rating depending, or to have some reaction depending on the what? The rating of that joke. So a rating of 10 can be showcasing like that's a very comic joke you have made. If your rating is 2, that's a very what? Boring joke you have made. So what I want to do now, I want to call a function here. So this function, let me have a function here. So this function is just an helper function to get some emoji. So emoji for rating. So the emoji, so this function expects an argument, but I want to pass rating as our argument that we are getting from this function. So this rating is of type number. Then I want to format something here. I want to use the if statement. So I want to check if the rating is greater than or equals to 8. So if the rating, this one, the parameter that we have passed, if it's greater than 8, you want to return something like this is a very comic joke, and we need to be laughing very much when reading that joke. So I want to return this emoji like this. Let me see whether I get that emoji laughing with tears, something like this. Then if the rating now is maybe something like so we need to cross the condition here that way. Then we do not need this here. Yeah, so that is how it should. I want also to check another if statement. So if rating is now greater than or equals to 5, we want to return another emoji, maybe now laughing without some tears. So let me have the return. Then what I want to return is just an emoji of laughing without maybe the tears. That comic is not that very interesting. Something like which emoji should we use? I think this one. Then I want to check if the rating is also greater than 3. So if the rating, so let me just have this is equal or greater than 3. I want to return maybe just smiling of that comment, or just reacting. So smile, something maybe like that. And if we do not have any, we want to return a default one, which is maybe something like surprised. Maybe something like that. So I want to call this function somewhere. So we said on the ESX, we can pass variables, function, attributes, and anything. So we can pass now this function here. So let me call that function get emoji for rating. Once I get that, I want to pass the rating as a what? A parameter in that function. So whatever is happening, we are calling this function and it's checking. If that rating is equals to 8, we display this emoji. If it equals to 5, we display this and the rest. So that is whatever is happening here. So I want to give this div some styling. So just below here, the styles. So the styles maybe can display flex space between and align items center that way. Then the span, we can have some font size. So this one, we want to have a font size of 1.5 rem, and the other span, this one, we want to have something like a font weight of bold and a color of black. So we are done with our joke. It's already exported, so we can use it in our application now. So let me go back to the app and now implement that. So in our app, we have our data that we want to pass in our component, which is a joke, which is under this data folder. So we need to import that also. So we want to import that data. So import jokes data. So is that data exported? So you want to import jokes data. Where are you importing from? So it's from this source folder, then on data folder, and that's so the data folder, then this joke data JSON. So that is what we want to import and use in our card or the joke. So we said this card can accept what? Children as a properties. So we can call this card again here. So we have used that card. So just below here, I can call that card again. So this card has a closing tag. So it should be like that. So inside that card, we can pass now another what? Component as a properties. Since the first property we can pass on this card is what? The title. So what the title should we pass here? So the title can be maybe our jokes correction. So which something like the title, instead of passing it as a string, we can use the templating to pass some dynamic data on that card. So the string templating, then our jokes correction. So let me have this emoji there. So we have our joke correction. Then inside here, I want to pass another bracket there. So in this bracket, I want to pass the number of jokes we are like, it's an array. So we can use dot length to get the number of jokes we have in our what? In our maybe this jokes data JSON. Then should be now the actual what? Jokes there. Then maybe we pass a different background as the next property here. And with that, you're able to see that component. This is the canned component, not the joke component. So the joke component, I want to pass it now as a children in these canned properties. So inside the card, remember we have this header, which is the property, which is missing the what? The children. And that is what I want to pass where? in this div. So in this card, I want to have a div. So this div, I want it to have some styling. So I want to display it as a grid. So style to be display grid. Display grid. Then another maybe property is a gap of 15 pixels. Then the last thing, we can have a grid template just to make sure we have some columns there. So the grid template of repeat, auto fit, and you want to have a column of 3 added pixels each, which is now one frame. So inside now our div, this one, which is now a children prop that we have passed in this card that we are using. So we are still using the same card, but we are passing now some different values. So we pass this title, but for this card, we pass this title. So inside our jokes collection, I want to get the total jokes. So remember, we have imported this, which is an array. So we can use it here. So we have used the string templating or string interpolation. So we can use now the dollar sign. Then we open the curly braces so that we can be able to pass or call what? The jokes data. And remember, it's an array, so I can use dot length to get the length of what? That jokes. And with that, automatically, even before rendering our jokes, we already seeing how many jokes we have in our what? In our joke JSON data. So we have some 21 what? Jokes in our joke data. So let's go ahead and now map using the .map function to render those jokes, but we want to render them in this joke component. So how can we do that? So inside now our component or the div, this one, we want now to open what? The curly braces, which is our JSX syntax. So in this JSX syntax, that is where I want to map our jokes. So I will call my jokes, which is this. Then remember it's an array, so it's a dot. Then we want to do what? Map. Once we map, we want to map each joke. So where we pass that joke as a callback what? Parameter in this callback function. Then we open the what? The curly braces so that we can render that what? One joke. So while rendering now this joke, this is where now I want to call my joke component, this one. So with this now, I call my joke component, which is this one coming from where? From the component folder. So I call that component. This now should be a self-closing component because we are not passing any children. Whenever you are passing a children in a component, that is where that component has a what? A closing tag. But if that component just you are passing some parameters which does not have a children, which is a React node children, you won't be passing or self-closing that component. But this now joke, we expect what? The ID, the what? The joke, and the what? The rating. So what can I do with that? So in our joke component, we need to pass that. So let's pass that in our this pattern component. Remember, we said we are rendering list. So the ID of this component we are passing. So where are we getting the ID? So where are we getting that ID we want to pass? Same case with the joke we want to pass. That is another property this component expect. And the last one is what? The rating. So the rating is also another prop we are passing this. So where should we get these three values? Someone to help me? If you understanding what is happening here. So we are using a map function, and excuse me, you know the purpose of the map function. So the map function, it's a defined what callback function, which returns each element of a what an array. So it returns an array that contains the what the results. So the function accepts up to 3 arguments, which is now for this case we are only passing 1 argument, which is the each joke from these jokes data. That is what is happening. So we are passing each joke. Now this each joke has a what? An ID, has a what? A joke and a what? So in this now joke is an object. Are you able to see this? So we can pass this ID now. We call our joke because it's an object. Then we use what? Dot what? We pass that ID there. The joke we are having here. Then the other one is what? It's joke now dot what? The joke itself now. Then what about the rating? The joke dot what? The rating. With that now, we have rendered our what? Our jokes. Let me scroll and see. So these are our jokes that are coming from our what? So with the help of just one joke component, we have rendered our components, all the jokes we have. So remember where I added the joke ID. So this joke ID is number 3. Then the rating. So if rating is greater than 3, we are just having this emoji. If its rating is 10 out of 10, we are getting that emoji. If it's maybe 5, we are getting this what? Emoji. So we have rendered that emojis, and but if we inspect, we might be having an issue. So let's see whether, yeah, the error we talked about yesterday, this one. Each child in a list should have a what? A unique what? So how should we solve that in our joke? So in our joke, we should also pass a what? A key. So in this, we will need to pass the key. So what did we say about the key when working with an array? Since we are not mutating this array that much frequently, we can just use joke ID to be our what? Our key. So we can use joke.id. And with that now, the error is gone. And if I rerun this, I should not be getting that error again. With that now, we have our jokes. So the next thing maybe we may want to display and use the component again. So we have rendered our jokes there. And just to quickly polish and finalize this project, I want just to display whatever we have learned here at the bottom. So after this card, then now the second card that we have rendered our joke, we want to call another card. So we want to reuse this card with a different data. So we call this card again. So this card, we said it has a self-closing tag because it expects some children, which are elements. So we want to pass something here. So I want to give you an assignment that you want to do. So the title of this should be maybe try it for yourself. That way. So I want you to try this. If you check it there, the bottom is just an assignment that I'm adding that you should work on. So try out this yourself. Then I want to render now some children, which is an ordered list. So this ordered list, I want to do something. So I want you to redo the same thing I have done. So I have this list here. So I will push this code. So I'll expect you maybe to work on this. Let me change the color of this ordered list. So we are in the style, then the color property, then maybe we pass color black, something like that. So this is the assignment that I want you to check on. So maybe go and try out. You look for that joke data JSON in that project. Check how we use the map function to create a joke component. Then you want to notice like the ID is the one we are using our the key properties. And now do this. So I want you to do the same, but maybe to customize the CSS and see whether you can get a different, maybe you can have instead of 2 jokes per column, you can have 3 columns in your application. Maybe the background, you change that and the rest. So up to that point, any question? So we have seen how we can reuse one component pass some children. That is what I was talking about yesterday, like when creating a dashboard. Maybe you'll have the main dashboard or the main component that is holding the dashboard, the nav bar, the side nav, and the inner component of that side now or that dashboard. So you will be passing maybe a component inside that main dashboard, which is now a mini component in that dashboard. So any question? Yes, Simon.
My question is not actually a question. It's a request for a recap of what we have done right now, like in a few seconds to make sure it syncs.
Okay. So let's do this. Whatever we did, we want to render jokes. And that joke is in this in JSON format. It's just an array of jokes we have, which is a total of 21 jokes. So each joke is an object. So it's an array of objects, which has an ID, the joke itself, and the rating. Then on our components, we said we want to be creating components that are reusable. We don't want to the instance of dry, which we said yesterday, the AKA dry, do not repeat yourself. That is what we did. So we want to create a component. Yes, we can create each component in our this project, this one. We can create each component for each joke. Like we create the first component, we design it with a different color or anything, we add that component, our joke there. The same case here, the same case here. But if you look inly, these are just the same thing you are trying to render. So why have different or more than one component that can do the same thing when you have one component and call it and map, maybe using the map function in what? In array. So whatever you have done here, so this joke data, we will be importing it in our app.tsx, this joke data there. That data is the one now we'll be using in this whenever we'll be calling now this joke component. So this joke component, it's just a function. We say they are just function, but in React we call them component. So this component, it has some properties. So these properties, it has an ID, the joke, the rating. Whatever is guiding us what's to pass here is what we have in this object of this joke. So if we be maybe having another column here or the property, we can pass it here in our these properties. That is what is happening. Then of course, this is the typing. So you want to type, we want to make sure that data type or the properties that are coming here, they are only the ID, the joke, and the rating. So if you want to pass another property, it should be defined in this interface. So it's like a security guard in our function. We don't want anyone trespassing this function if you are not an ID, if you are not a joke, if you are not a what? A rating. That is what we are doing with this interface here. Then this function is just an helper function that is, we'll be calling it somewhere in the code. Then we pass the rating that we are getting from this joke component as a prop. So this rating, we are passing it here, and we are still rendering that rating in this span. So if you check here, we have these two span here. So we have this span one, which is getting that function. Then we want to return what? The rating. So this rating is going and checking, is that rating greater than 8? Then return what? That emoji there. And that is what we are displaying here, because we are returning that emoji. If that rating is greater or equals to 5, we want to return this emoji in this DSX syntax here. Then, of course, we want to return now the actual rating, which is maybe 5. Then we say out of what? 10. Maybe our joke, the rating is out of 10, whatever we are doing here. But remember, you should not have the JSX of everything here. The JSX is used to display the dynamic data that is changing. That is why we are separating the static HTML and what? The HTML. We said React is just HTML with superpowers. So we want to, yes, to be passing the content, but this content is dynamic. It's the one that is changing frequently. So the rating of each what? Joke. That is now we have defined our joke components. So how can we use this joke component? So in our app, we are calling that joke component. But before we call that component, we want to call it inside another component called the card. So the card is just like a default component that is taking any other component as a React node, then the title, the string. So this is just now the prop of this what? Card. So we are guarding it. We want to pass the title, the background, and the what? The children. The children, we said, is just a React node or any other component that React can render. So what else can React render? So in our, where we are calling our app.csx, so we are calling that card. So we are passing the title, which is one of the properties in this card, is one. If you over to that card, and the background, then the children, you don't pass it in this format. So you pass inside the component, because you want to pass another component inside this card. So like URL, it's something that React can render, because it is an HTML. Whatever is happening in this card, we are saying the React, its React element only represent JSX. So the React node represent everything that can be done what? Rendered. And whatever you're saying is maybe the HTML element or another component, because another component can be rendered. So that is what is happening. Then while in this now app, so this is the first children property we are passing. Then we have another children, we have another children, we have another children, we have another children, which are wrapped in these children. We actually are passing this. So there must be difference between a component that expects a children and a component that do not expect a children. What makes the difference? A component that expects a children must have a closing tag of that what component, the same way an HTML element has. So it has an opening tag and a closing tag. But a component that does not have children or does not expect a children as a prop, but expect other properties without a children, it's as a self what? Closing tag. So we have called our tag, our card, pass the title, the first prop, and the second prop. If we fail to pass this prop, that is okay, because that property is optional. That is what we have here with this question mark. That property is optional. If it does not pass, just use the default background that we have here. Then we have passed that. So we reuse that component again. We call that component, which is card. So this card, the second, we want now to display our joke. So the first thing we want to pass in this title, we said React is a super HTML superpower. So we want to render the jokes, but also to render the dynamic data, which is now the total length of our jokes. So we can call the string interpolation. Remember this from our HTML and CSS, the string interpolation. When you want to pass dynamic what? Value. So we want to like mix a static data, which is our jokes collection, then the value of our jokes data. Remember this joke data is the one we imported from this data JSON. So we are just calculating the rank and displaying the number there. Then after that, I want to have a div inside this card. These are just properties like maybe a styling preference I would want to have in my card. So in this card, I'm dividing that component with two columns. That is what we are saying here. So the two columns, it's with the help of this, the grid. If we remember the grid classes, we have these grid template, which is to repeat out of it, then the min, max, min. Then after that, okay, sorry for that. I was making now explanation of whatever we are doing. So on this now div, I want to now to render a dynamic what or the JSX syntax. So I must include these curly braces. You see, whenever you are writing React and you want to render a JSX, you need to include these curly braces. So on these curly braces, I want to correlate the jokes data, which is the JSON. So this JSON, we can use an array of data. So we want to use the map function in a joke array. So this joke, we want to pass each joke in that callback function, this one, this one. So this is a callback function and we are passing whatever we are mapping, like whatever you are picking one joke from this joke what? Data. Then that joke data is the one now we want to pass. We want to call now the joke component that we created, this one. So this joke component expects the ID, joke, and the rating. That is what we are doing here. So we are passing now the what? The properties or the props to this joke. So we want to pass the ID, the joke, and the what? The rating. So these are coming from this each joke we are passing here. And this joke, the intelligence we are getting here, it's because of this interface we have added here. If we have not added this interface, we won't be having this intelligence of like this joke is of this interface, which expect an ID, the joke, and the rating. Then the rest is now calling another component, which is the using the card again, and maybe try to pass a different what? Message and some children on that component. That is what is happening here. So it is the same. This is the card. This is another card, but the second card has a children, which is a joke component inside. That is what is happening here. Then the third, it's also a card that has this text or these children. We have the parent card, which is now the parent component. Then the child component is this joke component we have here.